There's something uniquely destabilizing about moments when external structure dissolves. What initially feels like an identity crisis may in fact be something far less dramatic and far more human. In her writing on natality, Hannah Arendt suggests that the defining feature of the human condition is not permanence, but the capacity to begin. Not because one is fully formed, not because one is ready, but because beginning is inevitable. Are always starting over. We're always beginning. For me, I was graduating college, so I was coming from a space where I was used to having a lot of guidelines, clear benchmarks, and when you come face to face with natality, there's no longer a syllabus. And that sounds intense, but in practice, the confrontation is a little bit more quiet and it feels a little bit more like placement. I can think back to so many phases throughout my life where this cycle has repeated. You start as a beginner, you work your way to the highest level, and once that's complete, you go right back down to the bottom again. I felt this the most following graduation. Beginning and starting over again felt unusually visible. For a lot of this journey, I've interpreted that visibility as uncertainty and sometimes even as failure. But I'm starting to wonder if it's neither. You might notice that this is a new couch. And you're right, but we're still feeling it out in here. But for now, I think in order to dive into this, we need to first agree on some definitions. I want to bring back Miss Hannah Arendt's definition. The way she describes it, using the word natality like we've talked about, is that it's a unique quality of the human condition that we can begin something new. Basically, with every birth brings a blank slate of a human into the world. And because of that uncertainty, our potential can only develop from the point of reinvention. And I think it's an important aspect that she defines natality instead of mortality. Mortality is like the opposite. It describes our end. Natality describes our starting point, our beginning. And within this, we see that within one life, there are multiple births or moments where a new trajectory becomes possible. So I would like for us to think of beginning not as a point in time, but as a condition of openness. While I've been thinking and playing with these concepts, I started thinking of it as a sort of landscape, where it's a concept that has a light and a shadow. The light side of beginning is that it's a point with infinite possibility. Every outcome is possible. Therefore, you have the unique ability to make 1,000, 1,000,000 different choices. There's also a sense of freedom from whatever previous structure you're moving out of or past. So there is a side to beginning where, in theory, it's like pure freedom. Then we can think of the dark side of beginning. All things considered, in this openness, there can also feel like a lack of direction. It can feel quite daunting and overwhelming to not have that external structure or routine. That can lead to a lot of decision paralysis. And then there's also a lot of loneliness in the process of defining yourself. It's a point where you've kind of lost a sense of external definition and a group that you belong to, a theory that you subscribe to, because it's open. It's a blank slate. And that could be lonely and scary and a little dark. And it's true that the same openness that creates this kind of infinite possibility also creates a void, a space where absolutely nothing is decided yet. Every action feels like it's a decision and there's a weight to it and there needs to be a purpose behind it. Or maybe it's unclear what the purpose behind it is. That's the point where freedom starts to feel more like exposure.
If they're not in the freezer, then...
Around the same time when I was doing all of my research, I also discovered Simone de Beauvoir's concept of the self as a project. She argues it in the sense that identity is not something we uncover, but rather something that we build over time. To quote her specifically, I believe it's, "One is not born, rather one becomes." It kind of means that beginning is not the point where we start over. It's the point where we start building a new layer. Your other layers aren't gone, but your newest layer is the outermost facing. There was something that I wrote in my journal through this process, and I hope that I can find it quickly. And if I can't, I'm just going to paraphrase, but I basically was just talking about seeing this phase through. I was fully aware that it was something I was not going to be able to understand until I was at the other side of it. And I think that's so much of the point that I'm trying to make here, is that beginning is just something you have to see through and commit to. It's not going to make sense. Starting over is never going to be the point where you are the clearest on your vision, and that's okay. Another thing I wanted to reference was this book called This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub. Basically, the story follows a woman in her 40s named Alice, and Alice is unhappy with her life. She's like struggling with a lot of regret and feeling like she made the wrong choices. She's like comparing herself to her peers. There's this one night where she discovers that she has the ability to time travel back to a point in her life where she was 16, and she can do it over and over again, like unlimited amount of times. So each time that she returns to the past, she makes a different choice and kind of sees it through and sees how that life turns out for her. So she chooses different relationships, she chooses different jobs. The key realization that she comes to is that no matter what choice she makes and no matter which version of a life that she creates, the same emotional lessons keep reappearing. So in other words, she can't escape her fate by making a different choice. That idea completely changed the way I think about beginnings. It can be so scary to know that you are at a point, again, like a crossroads, where the choice you make will define a very long period down the road. I think what this book argues is that maybe there isn't a correct path. Don't let the fear of making the wrong choice dissuade you from making a choice at all. Walked around all day and I recorded, but I forgot to take pictures. So I have 24 frames left and we're only here tonight. Tonight's our last night. We're gonna have to make the most of it tonight. On the train, on the way here, I finished the 2 halves of this bunny that I'm knitting. This is the tail end, so they'll get sewed together. And the last thing that I need to do is start the head. See, I'll probably stay here for like 30 minutes and see how much progress I can make. There's definitely something uniquely destabilizing about moments when structure dissolves and you're left to figure things out alone and even on your own for the first time, maybe ever. So much of being a human is about being new. Throughout this journey, I've come to realize that I wasn't losing myself in the process of starting over. There just wasn't a syllabus anymore, and it was now up to me to determine my curriculum. Time has passed as time does, and I found myself uniquely settled into this new phase. Destabilization and the feeling of discomfort that accompanies it is not the opposite of becoming. It is the condition for it. So what initially feels like an identity crisis may actually be something far less dramatic and far more human.